Hello, Robert. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us on Southside Stories.
Good to be here, Matt.
Great. I'm looking forward to this conversation. You're doing some really interesting work. Um, let's start at the beginning. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, Robert, where you're based, your job title, and just a little bit about your company. We're going to go into a lot more detail on that in a second, but let's get the ball rolling with that.
Sure. So I'm Rob Shaw. I'm Managing Director of Third Revolution. We are a planning, sustainability and development consultancy based down in Waterloo and now up in Scotland as well. And we work with a whole variety of clients, but particularly in that space around development and infrastructure.
Great stuff, and it's a very topical subject at the moment. How long have you been involved in planning or sustainability?
So I trained as a planner in the 90s. So ever since then, I've been involved in sustainability really for the majority of my career in various forms. So, I started out, I've worked in universities, I've worked at the Town and Country Planning Association in the early part of my career in London, and it's an environmental charity, effectively. So working on that sort of lobbying side, developing policy, national policy, and particularly in the very early days at the beginning of the century when, renewables were this nice fluffy little thing that people laughed at a little bit, but was a long way from being anything anyone took seriously to where it is now, which is a very, very different world. So, and then from there, I've worked in consultancies on strategic planning and more recently in development management in several consultancies, including my own.
Just curious, sustainability, as you say, when you first started or got interested in the subject, it was, it's the very early days. What was the driver for you? What was the kind of the reason or the why, if you like, for why you got involved with sustainability projects?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question, isn't it? And I suppose the reality of these things is your reasons evolve over time.
Yeah.
I've always been interested in development. I've always been interested in change and the impact that positive new ideas and new technologies will have on people's lives and on places. So for me, I've always been interested in renewables, even from its very early days. And I've always seen that as a self-evidently good thing for society, for the economy, and of course for the environment that those things rely on. So that's really shaped my career from the get-go. Now it's mainstream and has been really for a good 15 or so years. I'm driven more these days perhaps by a desire to shape the way it affects people, the way it affects places in which we live and the land uses that are shaped by all forms of development and infrastructure. So it's an evolving piece, I would say, Matt.
Great. Okay, well, we're going to get into a little bit more about the projects you're involved with in a second. Curious though to know, because of course you could have pursued a career working for somebody else, many different career options you could have chosen, but why start your own business?
So I've always positioned myself as an entrepreneur of sorts. Within the organisations, the companies that I've worked for, I've always sort of taken what I've found and then tried to grow something myself around the things that I'm interested in. So in the early days at the Town and Country Planning Association, my interest was in climate change and in renewables. So I was able to take a small organisation the way I wanted it to go and was given the opportunity to do so. And then I took that same ethos, if you like, to consultancy, and was always brought into consultancies to develop something new, whether it worked, whether it didn't, whether it worked for a while and then didn't. It's a fast changing sector, and so things change. So I think there was always in my mind the likelihood that I was going to go and do something myself. And that opportunity presented itself in a very clear way back in 2017. Everything had changed. I built a part of my career around the solar sector, and that solar sector for me cut off overnight in 2015 when the government back then cut subsidies. So I had to sort of regroup and rethink. And the outcome of that was I set up my own business that does more than just renewables. It does a whole heap of things that no doubt will come on to, Matt. But so yes, I think there was always that sense I was going to do it. It was the flexibility to get involved in interesting things and to be the one deciding whether those things make commercial sense for a business to do or not.
Great. Okay. Well, let's get into it then. Let's get into third revolution. I mean, maybe just start with the basics, the fundamentals. Just what do you do? What problems do you solve? What kind of clients do you have?
Sure. So we work right across that development, planning, and sort of infrastructure, sustainability sectors in whatever forms those take. We are. I would probably characterize ourselves as being in that space between technologies and ideas that are rapidly changing and the effects that those have on places, landscapes, and communities. So that's quite broad. We are at heart mostly a set of planners. There's 15 of us. We've just branched out into socioeconomics, which I think is very exciting in terms of what that allows us to do and the services we can offer. But we're not focused on just a narrow set of things. We within that sort of framework, we get involved in all sorts of interesting projects and ideas. And it does come back to problems that we're trying to solve, right? So, planning, and by planning I mean helping on the one hand an applicant, a developer who has this idea to help them realise that, whether it's building a building, building a solar farm, a wind farm, or it's helping the institutions like local authorities to make effective plans to encourage those things or control those things. And that process is complicated. It's costly. It's time consuming. So put simply, we guide our clients through those complexities to secure deliverable planning consents, implementable plans and strategies, and help them to not just deliver perhaps a simple idea, but to help them to evolve their ideas. Bringing our interest and expertise in change to help them understand how perhaps they might do things differently.
Just, I'm curious about the local planning authority. That's usually sort of local government, isn't it?
Of course, yes, it is. Yeah. I mean, there's national government, and there will now over the coming months and years be new strategic authorities, but there's certainly an awful lot of local authorities too.
And what sort of brief would a local authority come to you with? Would it be as broad as we want to develop some contributions, some carbon neutral energy generation, or advise us on how we do that? Or is it more very specific, kind of project based, where perhaps there's already been some kind of approach from a developer?
So to give you a sort of flavour of how the process works, you've got the developers on the one hand who are trying to get approval from the local planning authority to build whatever it is they want to build. So we work with those. The local authorities, they are the planning decision makers. So they will develop local plans, so strategies, if you like, that say, we'd like things to be built over here, we'd like to grow jobs over there, we need to deliver this many houses. And they will develop a plan for that. They will also develop policies that will be used then to determine whether the applications that are submitted by private developers are acceptable or not. So let me give you an illustration of a project we've worked on recently for North Yorkshire councils. They are in the process of trying to deliver a new settlement between Harrogate and York. It's currently got a railway station and a few houses, and they want to build something much, much bigger. So they're working with a private promoter of that development. We were brought in to help develop a plan, a planning policy document that would be used by the planning authority to try and shape that proposal in ways that they wanted it to. So our particular brief was to develop an evidence base to support planning policies to encourage a place that was that was resilient to climate and was energy efficient and those kind of sustainability measures. So, in that sense, we used a lot of data, a lot of research into trends, looking at drivers of change, how those drivers, things like climate change, societal change, how those are interacting with the way that we live, the way we work, the way we move, generate energy, use energy, and to use that sort of understanding of those interactions between drivers and transformations that are happening to devise policies and provide evidence to underpin those policies that would ultimately guide how that development came forward. So to give you an illustration, out of that, this we were saying that we would say the way we generate and the way we use energy is changing. The capacity to connect new development to the electricity grid is very constrained. This is a growing problem across the country because we're moving to a world where most energy in a development is now electric rather than gas, electricity, and petrol for transportation. It's now all electric, and that puts great strain on developments because the electricity grid just isn't designed for this sort of thing. So using that kind of evidence, if you like, we could design policies that, on the one hand, help to reduce demand for energy, so walking and cycling infrastructure, and electric vehicle charging infrastructure, accepting that some people will drive, and essentially try to reduce demand, but also supply the power that served that development in an efficient and clean way. So taking a whole suite of different approaches, different themes, if you like, we were able to develop policies that went into a draft plan that we then worked with the council to defend at a public examination. And that's now well on the way to being an adopted policy that will guide the development. So that kind of thing is a really exciting part of the work that we do.
Yeah, because that's really impacting whole populations, isn't it? Or substantial kind of populations in a particular area. I guess that knowledge as well, that deep working relationship with some of the local authorities, that gives you a brilliant insight, doesn't it, as well, when you come to work with developers in terms of navigating the planning authority, their policy, what's behind some of their strategies, and understanding at a deep level what that is. That must be incredibly helpful, isn't it, when you're working on the developer side?
It certainly is. Yeah. I mean, there are 400 odd local authorities in England. So, you can't get around them all as a business our size, even the largest. But, they're all guided by the same fundamentals in terms of national policy and there is a universal, I believe, acceptance within local policy making and planning that climate change is a critical issue and needs to be addressed through measures including renewables. So, the lessons you learn in a place like Harrogate and the likes can be applied much more broadly to that. So, I think assuming that the planners go off, the plan makers go off and make policies in a vacuum from the private sector developers, I think would be the wrong way to go about things. In this world of increasing complexity, where the way we generate and use energy impacts the way that we travel and the way we work, is a good illustration, I think, of the fact that we've got to bring different sectors together, different sectors working together towards a common aim. So there would be no, and this is the purpose of the examination at the end of this project, whereby we all sat around a table with the local authority and ourselves presenting evidence to support these policies. And then the promoter and other interest groups also sat around presenting their needs. And what that ultimately comes out with is a set of policies that everyone can get behind.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And let's just switch to looking a bit deeper at sort of some of the sustainable projects. I mean, that includes things like solar farms and wind farms, would it?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and I can give you a couple of illustrations, but also it's not just about renewables. Yeah, we're working in sectors that are undergoing significant change. So the residential sector is undergoing pretty radical change at the moment. So you're seeing new forms of housing, such as co-living, aimed particularly at those people in their 20s and 30s who might live in fairly low quality houses of multiple occupation. I certainly lived in them when I came out of university. Maybe you did as well, Matt.
I did, certainly did.
Yeah, it's a sector that's been underserved, and we're now starting to see this new form of more communal living, which I see as having huge beneficial, being hugely beneficial to communities, as well as to areas, cities, places that want to retain their graduates. If you've got good housing for them, as well as good jobs, they're more likely to stay in the area and contribute the benefits of their education. So we do projects like that. We've got 2 sites down in Brighton, which gained consent fairly recently. One is already on site being constructed. The other will follow. And this was an old dilapidated set of buildings, long beyond their time expired lifespan. This is not only bringing a new form of much needed housing to an area, along with opportunities for co-working space, so that people can live upstairs, work downstairs if they want. But it's also helping to revitalise a pretty dilapidated piece of Brighton. So we work on that sort of project, as well as the solar farms, the wind farms, the battery energy storage project. Good example, if I may, of a solar project we've worked on is, and we've worked on hundreds, to be honest, but we worked on a scheme up in Norwich. It was a 30 megawatt solar farm with a battery attached to it, which was connected directly to the Norwich Food Enterprise Park. Within that enterprise park is a vertical farm, a company called Fisher Farms. They grow in a building, they'll grow crops underneath LED lights. So it's quite energy intensive. So the solar farm was designed specifically to provide power to that facility. And although a solar farm ground mounted took around 50 hectares of land, the amount of produce that came from that much smaller building, powered by that solar farm, was far in excess of what you would have got from the agricultural fields used in their traditional sense. So it's another illustration, really, of just how sectors are changing. The energy sector's changing, the agricultural sectors are changing, and it's leading to some really exciting solutions and innovations in both of those sectors.
Yes, that's very interesting, and I guess some of the justification for that particular example, would you have used some of the economic benefits connected with the outputs, the agricultural outputs, or was that just a nice byproduct that came later?
No, it's absolutely
Yeah,
fundamental to it. So when
yeah,
we put applications together, our starting point is to avoid sites that are demonstrably not suitable. Because although renewables are a good thing, they're not suitable everywhere. So we start by identifying those locations that are suitable. But once we've done that, we then have to design them in a way that minimizes potential harms, whether that's to landscape, receptors, to visibility, to habitats. And we're trying to weigh that side of things against the positives that a proposal can bring. So a solar farm like that will be bringing the benefits, the environmental benefits of climate change mitigation, energy generation, and usually very substantial ecological benefits from taking intensively farmed agricultural land out of production and using it to grow wildflower meadows and the likes. But a big part of that, and government policy is this is pretty critical to government policy, is the economic benefits
yeah.
of those and the social benefits as well. So, we will be building a case for stacking up all those benefits, if you like, the environmental benefits, the social benefits, the economic benefits of secure, low-cost energy supplies for the future. And of course, in the case of the scheme in Norwich, the economic benefits that would flow from a scheme that, quite frankly, would be unlikely to be a viable proposition if it wasn't supplied by renewable energy, because renewable energy is cheaper than buying it from the grid. So all of these things play into an argument as to why a scheme like this should be approved.
How do you get involved with, or do you get involved with local communities who might object to a particular proposal? Even one where there are very strong environmental, societal, or economic benefits. And I'm thinking here of, sometimes wind farms run into this. We've probably got electricity pylons, and the need for those might be the next big area of kind of conflict. Do you get involved with local communities at the sort of the inception and pre-approval stage?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a really important part of it, Matt. So I made the point at the beginning that renewables are now mainstream. They've been mainstream for a long time. They're one of those technologies that is experiencing exponential growth, driven by rapid reductions in cost, and the knock-on effect is rapid deployment. And that's only really going to increase with technologies like solar, like batteries. They will only get cheaper because they have no fuel source. As they get cheaper, they become more important as a source relative to other forms. So we're going to see more of it. And a lot of these technologies are being developed by necessity in communities that often have been little changed for decades, maybe even longer. Solar and wind are perfect examples of those.
Yeah.
And that can lead to resistance. Not always by any means. The example of the Norwich scheme I referred to was well supported, but there are certainly many schemes where there is opposition, and sometimes quite active opposition to them. So our role is to navigate that. We sort of see ourselves, we sit at the heart of the developers team, bringing the various specialisms together to create a good scheme and to engage with the community. So we'll usually work with specialist communications consultancies. Sometimes the developers themselves have those capabilities, but we will be there sort of at the heart of that. We will be there in public events, public meetings, talking to the community. Because what ultimately we're trying to do here is to present schemes that people can support and get behind. They won't always, but the more we can do to bring them on board, the easier it's going to be for everyone. These developers, they're going to be operating in these communities for decades. So building a firm basis for that, a strong basis for that in the early days is only beneficial.
Yeah, got it. Okay, that's very interesting. With the current sort of pressures and sort of strategic need for the UK to become less reliant on overseas suppliers of energy, have you seen any sort? I'm thinking now of have you seen any relaxation in terms of planning controls? Is there more of a propensity, perhaps, to approve these types of schemes than there has been in the past? And does that lead to let's cover that one first, maybe.
So you're absolutely right. So planning policy for renewables has largely been consistent in its support. So for as long as I've been involved in it, there have been planning policies that have said renewable energy should be supported. That has always come with a caveat. And I'm paraphrasing here, Matt, but it would be a caveat that it needs it shouldn't be at the expense of unacceptable harms to landscape, to public amenity, to nature, and the likes. So it has always had that support. It's always had those caveats. And that's been largely unchanged for the last 20 years, really. I would say over the last coming up year now, since we've had a Labour government, I think that support has perhaps become stronger. The National Planning Policy Framework, which is the government policy framework that guides decision making at the national level and is a key document for us, was updated in December, and that had a very clear statement in there that the weight in planning terms, if you're weighing the positives, the negatives, the weight given to the benefits of renewable energy should be significant. Reality is decision makers have largely given it that sort of weight over the last sort of 10, 15 years, but it's now very clearly stated in black and white. And I think that helps, along with, I think, a very clear direction of support from ministers, government officials on just how important this stuff is. The renewables, renewable energy infrastructure, and it's everything related to it is at the heart of this government's growth plans. So I would say it is more difficult for local authorities to turn down renewable energy schemes so long as they can demonstrate that those harms have been addressed. So it is by no means a way of saying every solar farm, every battery project, every wind farm is now going to be approved. Absolutely not. But it is now, the onus is on demonstrating that it would cause harm at a subtly greater extent than it was perhaps 12, 18 months ago.
Let's switch now to your own growth plans, because you're operating in. I know it's not the only area you do, but on the sustainable, renewable side, that's a very fast-growing area. How have you been growing for the last couple of years?
So we started in 2017. I was a one-man band until 2020. March 2020, in fact, which was quite a hairy time to suddenly decide to start taking people on. Thankfully, that worked out.
Because that was COVID. That was COVID time, wasn't it?
It was exactly that.
Yeah.
So almost to the day I took on my first person, we went into lockdown. So the plans to move into the office in Waterloo were put on hold for a while. But thankfully, the business was starting to take off there, and it was largely unaffected by COVID. So we've grown pretty fast since then. There's now, as of coming Monday, we'll have 15 of us, 15 professional staff, plus some various other admin support, IT support, and the likes. So we've grown very, very quickly since 2020 in terms of people. Our turnover revenue has grown fast as well. It's been largely doubling every sort of 14 months or so, I would say, and I'm confident that that will continue. And we've also grown in geography as well. So we've got our main Waterloo office. We opened in the autumn last year an office in Edinburgh, serving the Scotland market. And we've got plans to grow further in further geographical locations as well. And we've also grown in specialisms. So I alluded earlier to taking on 2 socioeconomic specialists. They're the 2 starters next week. So we've got planners, but those planners, some of them are development managers doing the kind of projects that I've been talking about on the energy side or the co-living side, but also those with expertise in heritage and in policy planning, sustainability. So we've been growing in revenue terms, people terms, geographic locations and specialisms.
How do you win new business?
So we've been really fortunate in the early days where I had a few key clients who were largely at the same sort of stage, setting up their business. I'd worked with them for many years before. They were setting their businesses up around the time I was. And we kind of grew together, really. Some of those were quite small, so they joint ventured with others, and we've started working for those joint venture partners. And it's kind of grown organically from there, really. So it's been a really good process for us. We haven't had to spend a lot of time going knocking on doors, cold calling, building work that way. We're now starting to get to the size of a business where we do need to start bringing new clients in that maybe wouldn't have come to us organically. So, we do that through, we're increasingly doing that through things like a revamp in our website that we did last year. And we're getting our name out there by going to events, increasingly starting to put blogs together, things like this. Matt, these sort of conversations are great for getting our name out there and getting known. This week I've been doing some training for the Royal Town Planning Institute, which is the accrediting body for town planners, and they do training sessions. So I've been doing some training for planners today. So all of that helps to build the knowledge of our brand, the awareness, and the potential for new clients to come our way.
Great, that's very exciting. Congratulations on that. It's a great trajectory. It probably comes with some challenges as well, doesn't it? What would have been some of the challenges as you sort of go through this rapid period of growth?
I would say probably the biggest challenge has been going from a small business, getting ourselves set up with the processes, the systems that needed to continue to grow and to become over time a larger business. And that comes with challenges when you're also trying to deliver projects and you're trying to ever improve the quality of the projects that you're doing and the services you're providing to your clients. So it's that balancing act, and as you grow, there's more and more pressure on a small group of people, which has been, I would say, over the last 12 months, that's been the key challenge for us, getting those systems, processes in place and to maintain the high standards that we set ourselves in terms of quality.
And how have you gone about sort of improving your systems? Is that kind of documentation, or is it training, or is it what? I mean, just briefly, what does that look like?
Yeah, sure. So we've introduced new business management software that will manage our CRM, workflow, project management, invoicing, and so on. And I think the key benefit of that is it gives us fingertip data on how much projects are costing, how much time they're taking, how much we're bringing in. So it allows us to set KPIs and measurable targets in a way that just wasn't available when you're trying to work off Excel spreadsheets and those sort of things. So yeah, I think at the beginning I put in place processes and systems that were great for 5 or 6 people, but it really wasn't great beyond that. So processes, and we're systemizing everything at the moment as well. So a lot of our work follows a similar pattern, but so we're systemizing all of that. So the idea being that anybody can come in and they'd be a professional planner, but they may never have done a solar farm application. So they can look at this, follow a process, and using their expertise can then deliver it with minimal input from seniors. And then that means the review process becomes much more straightforward, much more slimline, less cost, fewer mistakes. So we're extending that from systemizing projects to also systemizing how the flow of inquiries, project setup, onboarding of new staff, right the way through. So end-to-end systemization is the next step.
And on the staff side, how have you found that? Because many business owners talk to me about the tight labour market, harder since Brexit. How have you found finding the right people?
So I would say it's starting to get easier for us as we've grown. But yes, it's been challenging. I took a view about 3 years ago that I wasn't the best person to be going out trying to find people. I was better off bringing in a specialist recruiter to do the first sift and leave me then and increasingly my team to work to interview people and make sure they're the right people. So we've got a really good recruiter. He really understands us, spent a lot of time getting to know us, and spent a lot of time getting to know potential candidates as well. So they've been absolutely fantastic in supporting our growth. But what we're starting to find now as our profile raises, we're getting bigger, is people are starting to knock on our door and say, have you got any jobs going, sort of thing, which is it's a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Not least because there's the cost element of that, but it's also just really just reinforces
it's a recognition
how much
of what you're doing.
Yeah. So really exciting time, I think.
Great. Well, that's fantastic. That's very positive. How have you grown? Because you've gone from sole contributor to basically running a medium-sized business now, 15 plus people, 2 joining Monday. What are some of your personal areas of growth that you've experienced over the last couple of years? What have you learned about yourself?
To run a business, don't you? I'm a trained town planner. I haven't got an MBA or anything like that. I've always been interested in this, but you learn by doing, and you learn by making mistakes. You learn by reading, getting help, bringing the right help in when you need it. So, I've learned a huge amount individually about growing a business. I'm learning a huge amount from the people I work with in the business. I've got an incredible team around me who deliver more and more of what the company does, but also from externals, from your clients and from reading and the like. So you're always learning. It's remarkable professionally in terms of me as a town planner. Almost every week I'm learning something new. But on the business side, learning every day really on that front. So it's been a really exciting journey. At times a little terrifying, a little hairy, but been very, very rewarding ultimately.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, but is there anything about yourself that surprised you? Is there anything that I never, if you spoke to me like 5 years ago, I would never have said I would be in this position, being able to achieve this. Is there anything that and it might be, I don't know, working with people, running a team, but is there anything that you've surprised yourself with how you've stepped up as the company's grown?
Um, I would say I've perhaps realised I'm more resilient than I thought. Yeah, that any business that's growing, well, any business has serious challenges that test your resilience and your resolve. I went into this business not really. I didn't expect in the early days to be where I am now, and I've perhaps realised that I am more ambitious than I'd given myself credit for in the early days. And I wasn't going to be satisfied being a sole trader. I wasn't going to be satisfied with just a few people. I relished the growth side. So that level ambition probably surprised me, and how resilient perhaps I've been in those more challenging times.
Excellent. It sort of leads me on to my final question, and it's a question we ask everybody on Southside Stories, and it's people who have had a really positive impact on your growth, on your professional life, an inspirational leader. And sometimes this is a early mentor or a boss or a leader. Sometimes it's somebody famous. Sometimes it's a member of the family. Sometimes it's an advisor or a VC or a funder. Who springs to mind for you when you think about something that's had a really great impact on the way that you're managing things?
It's a difficult question, isn't it? Really, because there's probably dozens of people who have had impacts in different ways at different points that have got me to where I am today. I would say there's two people that have jumped out at me. One is a gentleman called Jeremy Leggett, who set up a company called Solar Century. His background was as an oil explorer, saw the light and joined Greenpeace, and then set up a tiny company called Solar Century at the back end of the 90s, doing very small stuff but with big ambitions, and grew that to be probably one of the biggest, most successful solar developers and operators, certainly in this country, and I suspect long before. So I came across him back in my Town and Country Planning Association days, where they were looking for support to get renewables better promoted as a thing in planning policy. So I was in a position to help there under the umbrella of the Town and Country Planning Association, and we worked with them. But he has always been pretty inspirational. The other gentleman I'd mention is Michael Liebrich. He used to be Bloomberg New Energy Finance. Well, he set up New Energy Finance, which was an analytics company looking at analysing growth and trends in particularly technologies like renewables. He then built that, sold it to Bloomberg, so it became and still is Bloomberg New Energy Finance. And he just the data that his company were producing was pretty inspirational for me in pivoting my career towards working in areas that were experiencing exponential growth, exponential change. And so people like him and others are pinpointing these exponential trends. But for me, then I could pick that up and say, well, there are very few people out there really who are trying to understand what that means for places, people, land uses, landscapes. So both of them were very influential for me.
Yeah, that's very interesting, isn't it? Because both Jeremy and Michael, they sound like they were sort of visionary and futurist in the terms of they could probably see where the trends were going. They probably had some other purpose as well, an interest in this area, but also very successful business people.
Indeed,
as well.
And Jeremy now runs a rewilding venture up in Scotland. So it's moved on to the next thing.
Fantastic, that's great. Well, what a great way to finish. Robert, thank you so much. That was fascinating. Best of luck with the growth plans. Sounds like you're on a streak. doing some wonderful things for planning the future of the UK, sustainable energy. It's all great stuff. Thank you for your time today.
You're very welcome, Matt. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Great. Thanks a lot.